Folks, Hapes O Games back again, and I've just beaten Resident Evil 8, so I did want to take some time to share some thoughts on the game, my general impressions from end to end. So before I start, I wanted to keep this spoiler free, so completely spoiler free. So I'm not going to be showing any footage of the actual game. I'm actually going to show some footage of Mercenaries, but I'm not really talking about Mercenaries today, but just to make that clear. So really, my angle and my thought process on this was built up over time because I wanted to take some good time with the game. I took a bit of a break from the channel this week just to kind of clear my head, and I did just spend some time playing this game through end to end because it was something I was really looking forward to. You know, I'm a massive fan of Resident Evil. I've covered that before, but essentially the immediate feel I got from this game was a bit of a correlation and relationship between Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 4 and how the game changed from, I suppose, isometric to behind the camera. And then in this case, when you compare Resident Evil 7 to Resident Evil 8, the differences and kind of merging of both aspects of gameplay into the one, if that makes sense. And I'll explain maybe more on the aspect of why I get the feeling that Capcom is on a real high right now. When we think back maybe in 2010, I believe it was, Resident Evil 6 had launched. And I think the biggest complaints with Resident Evil 6 at the time were how far away that Resident Evil was from its original formula. And not just formula, but atmosphere, story path. And I suppose Capcom used to be industry setters for this type of genre, okay? And I think by the time 2010 came around, they had kind of changed their tone and they were really following instead of leading. So the biggest complaints people had, as I said, with Resident Evil 6 was it felt like something else. It felt like they were following a different formula. They were copying Call of Duty, they were copying other game aspects, but they weren't bringing their own originality to it. So it did look like they revamped that thought process. And when we got Resident Evil 7, we kind of got back to what really being a Resident Evil game was about and why we all originally loved the series. So for me, Resident Evil 8 is a perfect example of Capcom going back and doing what they do best, but also learning from their mistakes. And the reason they've learned from their mistakes is because they've taken what really worked with Resident Evil 7, they ran with it, and then they looked at their older titles and probably their more successful titles, and in this case, the biggest comparison I can make for Resident Evil 8 is Resident Evil 4, but they fine-tuned it so that it has ample amount of horror, but it also has that action element. So for me, the best thing about Resident Evil 8 I experienced was its pacing. Its pacing is fantastic. It's probably the best paced game I can remember Capcom making. And what I mean there is, it's those subtle downtimes between the action where there's some genuinely horrifying moments. And again, I'm not going to spoil them, but I think people will know there's one specific area in this game which is absolutely terrifying. So again, it's finding that balance and flow between that action and then those scary, haunting scenarios. And they're using the first-person aspect really strongly here. And I'm glad they stuck with it. I know a lot of people don't like it, but we have gotten recently our third-person versions of Resident Evil 2 Remake and 3, which everybody enjoyed as well. So we've gotten that. I think they've factored in the fan base and the wide scope of that fan base. In the fact is, I'm glad they ran with 7 and made a direct sequel to it. But the other aspect of it is, in Resident Evil 8, they've managed to really incorporate the overall overarching Resident Evil universe into Resident Evil 8. So it no longer feels detached a little bit. Maybe that was the biggest gripe for Resident Evil 7. It felt a little bit detached from the rest of the series. Whereas in 8, I genuinely felt like this is nearly a direct sequel to all of the other previous Resident Evil games I've played. So, I mean, that's it. I just wanted to share those thoughts today. Again, I stayed clear of any gameplay spoilers, etc. what I really wanted to talk about was my general thoughts on the game and how I think Capcom really have gotten to a great place with the series. It's incredibly exciting if you're a Resident Evil fan in general. That's it for me today. I said I wanted to just take some time, really slow, methodical, play the game to completion, soak in all the atmosphere. I actually went into the game absolutely knowing nothing, no previews, read nothing about it. Went in pure cold, and it was the best thing I'd done because I experienced it for myself. But guys, as I said, that's it for today. If you like what you see and you like what I'm talking about, please make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.